how within a democratic system are we ever going to get back to having a balanced budget?
Well, I mean, first of all, we have factual proof that it can be done because we did it. So it's not a theoretical question. One, you rally the American people to the balanced budget because if we're going to run a deficit anyway, I want my money. Why would I give up my money if we're going to have a deficit anyway? But if the cost of getting to a balanced budget is that I have to give something up, I probably will do it. And we found that made a huge psychological change. Two, you've got to get maximum economic growth. The difference over 10 years of 3 or 3.5 or 4% growth versus the Congressional Budget Office's socialist left-wing, totally destructive model, which should be eliminated. They should abolish it. It's wrong by trillions, and it is an anti-free enterprise, anti-capitalist model that's just crazy. You get to 3-4% growth, the amount of revenue you generate the right way, not raising taxes, but having more people earn more money and have more people employed. So that 2 is economic growth. 3, you have to have big reforms. If we had not passed welfare reform, the largest single socially conservative reform in your lifetime, that changed almost everything. Well, you can apply the same thing today, and by the way, the country overwhelmingly agrees. A majority of the people on Medicaid agree that Medicaid should not go to able-bodied adults who refuse to work, which is, by the way, what happened to us in 96. It turned out a majority of people on welfare thought we ought to go to a work requirement. So you have to have big reforms. 4, I'd say, learn to be frugal. I talk about Trump time and Trump savings. Apply it to the Pentagon. You don't need $1 trillion at the Pentagon. I mean, what you have at the Pentagon is a conspiracy between giant, incompetent, corrupt bureaucracies in the government, giant, corrupt bureaucracies in the private sector, lobbyists who take care of the Congress. I tell people all the time, if you reduce the Pentagon to a triangle and put the other 2/3 into a museum, you would automatically get a better defense system because the bureaucracy is insane. It makes no sense in terms of defending America. So you can save, you should be able to save. If Trump's projecting $1 trillion, you should basically save $250 billion of it by just being semi-smart. If you were really smart, you'd get about 400. But let's just stay at 250. Finally, make America healthy again changes everything. I wrote a book on this, by the way, to show you the depth of my frustration. I wrote a book in 2003 entitled Saving Lives and Saving Money. That order. Health is a moral issue. You have to save lives first, and then you're allowed to save money, which is why every time you lead with a reform which has money, people get rigid because they think you can let them die in order to save a buck. But if you lead with better health, we have a sick care system, and I recommend to all of you to read the Maha report on children's health. It is devastating. If you simply got to a reasonable reform, I believe, and I've done this now for well over a quarter century, I believe you take 4% of the gross domestic product out of spending. Now, remember, 18% of the economy, $1 out of every $5 basically, is health. So when you tell me, I really want to balance the budget, by the way, you can't touch Medicaid. I really want to balance the budget, but you can't touch Medicare. You really can't make the hospitals mad. You really don't want to take on the pharmaceuticals. Well, then you're just kidding yourself. But if you did that, if you had MAHA applied to produce dramatically better health outcomes, if you moved from a sick care system to a health care system, if you combine that with the other things I just said, you'd be in a balanced budget within 5 years.